Hi y'all, welcome back to Date Car Pod. I'm Jenna, and we're still celebrating the gays, even though today on the Instagram I got told by somebody that it's not my month and that I should shut up and not tell straights what to do. And I told her, I said, legally it is my month, and every time you speak, I'm charging you $1. So I counted it. I think her comment is gonna be at least like 20 bucks, and she owes me, okay? I don't know who you are, Suzanne, but you need to leave me alone. It is my month. But yes, welcome back. Still Pride here at Day Card Pod. And I was thinking about what I could do like as another interview, another topic. And I have always been intrigued by the pageantry of Bachelor Nation, the pageantry of The Bachelor, and how long of a history the Bachelor franchise has had with pageantry. They're like sister sisters. Like it is it is rich, and Chris Harrison's been involved in it. So many bachelorettes have been involved with it. And I was like, but at the same time, I want to talk about like the gayness in that, because there's gayness in Bachelor Nation. So wouldn't you think there'd be gayness in pageantry? But I will admit that I'm not somebody who really like watches the pageantry world, gets into it at a time, pays that much attention, and occasionally I see a headline and somebody has done some amazing feat and has come out or is one of the first international contestants to win something, and I'm always like here for it. And yeah, so then I saw this lovely follower of Date Carpod who I've befriended over the years. She's a great listener, and I was reminded that she herself is an out queer pageant contestant queen badass, and I was like, please come on to the podcast. So please welcome to the podcast, Sofia Miranda Fred.
Hi everyone! So happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm just so happy to meet you officially. We're always in the DMs chatting, and yeah, it's cool to meet somebody like that, and then also just to hear your story. You shared a story a couple weeks ago about how important it is to be out as queer in the space that you're in, which is the pageant world. And I just want to hear more about that. And but before we get into that, I want to know more about you also as a Bachelor fan and who you are. So let's get into it. Like, is there any fun facts you want to tell the audience?
Absolutely. So, Sophia here. Dallas is where I reside. I started competing in pageantry 2 years ago through the Miss America organization,
Mm,
and I am one of the first openly lesbian contestants to compete.
mm.
I'm queer, I'm here, and I'm staying near. So, it has been quite a journey starting this process and deciding from the get-go that I was going to compete out and
Mhm,
openly and proudly,
mhm.
because as you said, there are a lot of intersections in Bachelor Nation, in pageantry together, and then in all the queer identities. Like, you want to talk the chart? We could do lines, we could do circles, dotted line, question mark, hypothesis, conspiracy theories, the whole thing, and
Yeah.
realizing how much overlap there is in those communities, as well as people with queer identities in those spaces. I was like, well, I need a movie or a Netflix series or something, because it really has been fascinating. I'm like, this is one of the only topics where I'm like, I could have written a senior thesis about this,
Yeah.
and I could also binge like a 5 season Netflix series about it. So I'm like, we need more things. We need more on this topic.
No, we really do. And it's like, because I was really thinking about when I interviewed the authors for Here for the Wrong Reasons, and we just talked so much about how these like two women, these feminine women, one of the characters, Kristen, is a pageant, oh, so sorry, she's a rodeo queen. And I think they did that to kind of just not be too close to the money in the regards of how they talked about the Bachelor in their book. She was a rodeo queen, but like same difference, no offense. I'm kidding. But I was like, I just, it's not surprising as queer people. We know we exist everywhere. And like you said, all of the different intersections, ace, bisexual, trans, non-binary, gay, like literally everyone is everywhere. We're in your walls. And you can't like, and so, but I think so many people do like to just like kind of pretend that it can't exist in these like areas that we just have ascribed hyper heteronormativity to. but there is, and there's so many queers in the Bachelor Nation as we're finding out. People who haven't come out, people who will come out, who have all these different things, and like obviously it would be the same in pageantry world. And why wouldn't it be? And I feel like, oh my God, there's so much I want to discuss about it. But I agree with you. Like we're here, we're queer, and you're not going anywhere. And I agree that we need more representation. When you said like a movie or a Netflix series, like that made me so horny. I need that.
You said
Oh,
something that I really liked, and that people get confused, right? When you're a member of Bachelor Nation or your pageants, you're like, but you're gay, you're a lesbian. And something that my time in pageantry has taught me is that a lot of people assume because of your identity that dictates your interests. And I have to be like, no, I want to tell you all that you can be anyone and you can like anything. Just
mhm.
because I'm a lesbian doesn't mean I am consuming high amounts of straight drama shows. Like, I love that. I eat that up. I am up late. I am ruining my REM cycle so that I can rewatch all the things Rachel Lindsay, and I can go back and
Yeah,
watch Gabby Windy. Like,
yeah.
who do you think I am? Like
It's so
regardless of my sexuality, I love shows. Like, please.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke, I'm like, a lot of the gays come to Bachelor because of all the reasons I've mentioned that it's very queer coded, but it's like, but even if that wasn't the case, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can be a lesbian or anyone and still feel like interested in seeing that content is made for everyone, is to tell a story. And it's just like wild. And I think because people get still so confused that there could be queers in spaces that they're not, they are are confused by because we don't get that representation. So they're like, "Well, I've never seen it. I never heard it." That kind of is confusing the part of my brain that's like, just doesn't quite get it or is also like phobic and like
Mhm.
disgusted by that concept, which we'll get into later. I want to talk about that. But yeah, we need that representation, and I'm glad that the queer fan base and friends and community that I've like, become friends with over the years in Bachelor Nation is so rich and really makes it worth talking about this shitty show.
Yes, I know. We continue on together through better and through worse and through worser, and it is usually the latter two.
Yeah, it is a lot too. Well, yeah, so you're a fan and you've been watching. How long have you been a fan?
So my first season was Desiree's season, and
Hell yeah, bro, that's my faves.
that was so good. That was so good. And I remember, so I was a kid, and coming out story is a whole nother
Yeah,
thing,
we'll
right?
get into that.
I didn't realize the whole gay thing until later. My brain hadn't fully developed yet, but it definitely was not in my early teens or anything. So had a lot of formative experiences with my mom on the couch where we would melt chocolate ice cream, mix it with cornflakes, and we would watch the hell out of Bachelor on Monday nights. And just seeing, this is what adults do when they date. You're supposed to say, I love you after a couple of weeks. That you're going to live in a house with a bunch of girls and you all are going to share outfits and be best friends or the worst of enemies. And you're also going to go to Thailand. Like, in my head, I was like, okay, that's how we find our person. That's what being an adult looks like. There will be a flower distributed when I behave well. And if not, I will cry into a wine glass. I said, all right, I'm getting the lingo and the lowdown of what it is like to be an adult in a romantic relationship. So imagine my surprise a
God.
couple years later.
Honestly, thank goodness, because I didn't watch it as a kid. I watched it like as an early 20s something, but I always like cringe when I hear about younger people watching it. It's like, I really hope you're not learning that this is how any of this is, but so thank God you're gay.
I know, right? It'd be a bad blueprint if that was otherwise.
Exactly. That's great though, but that is wonderful, and yeah, Desiree season was really one of the best we've ever had. I get chills every time I think about it. Um, That's great. Yes. I mean, you mentioned Rachel Lindsay. She's obviously a fave of pretty much anyone with a brain.
Yes, yes.
What are other seasons you've liked or that you've like hated or you just,
So I really enjoyed the drama and the momentum in Peter Weber's season. I think we just created some powerhouses and some Bachelor legends, not only from their followings, but also the impact or lack of impact. It's just a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
yeah.
And then he the the gay representation, the gay male representation that we have in Bachelor Nation, unfortunately, I found his season very compelling as well because there was a lot of drama there. But now, given everything, I'm like, oh, there were many things happening there that we were not privy to. And maybe for many reasons, he should not have been there or he should not have stepped up to that plate. So I wish peace and love and light
Yeah.
to everyone, but what the hell?
But it's interesting you brought that season up because that was a season where we had competing pageant queens, Miss Hannah Brown and Kaylin Miller Keys, Deanie Babies.
Babies van across the US.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's their full legal name. And but like yeah, so they were like these competing queens and that was like one of the dramas and so that's just like funny, but and then the cross section, yeah, of Colton being a closeted gay man on that show. It's just interesting because I imagine there's so many closeted pageant contestants out there still, clearly. And I think it's like while we have at length talked about nuance with his situation, what I always do find inspiring or whatever is that it is important that he did come out because of his football background and I think that that is huge anytime a football guy comes out. I mean, truly,
You
it's
bring up a good point. So I'm a big WNBA fan.
yeah,
Everybody's good there. But when you look at male, so that ain't, they're not new to that. They're true to that. Okay. But with, you make a great point with a lot of male athletes, there are very few who come out while they are competing in major leagues. It is something that they do after they retire or from a place where it is less, there's lower stakes. And I mean, we can talk about the intersection of pageantry and sports and the NFL and the Bachelor. I mean, that is all, it's like a microcosm of the United States, right? But you'll see that people who have these platforms or who have this immense privilege or, you know, proximity to power, they will not take those risks until they believe, oh, it doesn't matter, or, oh, that won't affect my income, or I'm not at a point right now where it'll pull sponsorships or I'll receive hate or anything. And it's just really frustrating when people don't step up to the plate if they have all of that privilege. And I get it, it's super nuanced, it's extremely complicated, but it is disheartening when some of the most privileged people aren't using their voices, aren't using their platforms, or they have like an elephant in the room when it comes to their sexuality or something that is important to them, but they don't want to talk about because they think it'll risk their public image.
yeah, that's so true. Fuck. Yeah, and like you were saying, you just I want to hear about your decision to like be out before entering into the pageantry world. And then I was just looking at so Bailey Ann Kennedy won Miss Maryland this year, and she is an Asian American and a trans woman. And again, like yeah, so like my mind went to her immediately when you were saying that. Like she has so much to risk, but her doing that and winning is so like powerful on top of just even the normal parts of it that are powerful.
No, absolutely. She has made history in a multitude of ways already, and
Yeah.
I cannot wait to support her as she goes and competes at Miss USA.
Mm.
We have seen in these past couple of years, there have been so many amazing candidates who are non-binary, who are trans, who hold queer and LGBT plus identities. And the fact that they are willing to share that is extremely brave. I live in Texas, which is quite a big pageant state.
Mm.
And sometimes I think pageantry has the opportunity to be an amazing ground for innovation, women who are breaking boundaries, but it is also an industry that battles a lot with those traditional values and who is allowed in these spaces, who's allowed to have a voice, what type of politics or ideologies are either accepted, celebrated, or looked down upon. And I hope using my platform and showing people you can do this regardless of your sexuality, and I want you to find a home where you are excited to do those events and activities. I hope that that's able to impact other young people who feel afraid to come out in those spaces or show up as their true selves.
Yeah, that's so important. That's literally what it's like about. It's like just what it's about. Because what we were saying earlier, these people, even with the ones with privilege and power, are still afraid. So like, yeah, sure, we can criticize them, but it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised or shocked that we're still having to have these conversations because it is still so scary. You can still lose your fandom. Taylor Swift. So like it's I get it. But yeah, so I find that fascinating. So yeah, I guess like let's take us through a little bit your coming out story and how you like figured it out and then your decision to come out to your parents. A year ago today, congrats.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow, we timed that perfectly. And that's called when gay math actually works.
Yes, yes, that's the power of pride. I didn't even realize it until a couple days ago because I was like, I know I had came out to them June of last year. And I was like, when was it? And then when I realized it was the same day we were recording this, I was like, look at the gay goodness in the world. This was supposed to happen.
It's all meant
So
to be.
I knew kind of in my early 20s, I was queer. Things had happened to me in college that made me question my identity. But once again, that patriarchy, that heteronormative society, that the grip is strong. Okay. The force is strong with that one because it was designed to be strong with that
Yeah,
one. So
yeah.
it wasn't until my early collegiate years where I said, something is not right here for me. And then around my sophomore, junior year, I met someone and she just lit a spark in me that made me feel like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like when you want to be in a relationship with someone. This is what it's like when you actually enjoy being with your partner. And so we had met, we ended up being pen pals. It was quite gay, really, really quite gay. We were long distance pen pals for a long time. And then we transitioned to weekly calls. And then she ended up being my first girlfriend. She was absolutely wonderful. And I wish her all the best. And that was the first iteration of times when I started coming out to people in my life around those years, realizing I am not straight. I didn't do a lot of introspection when I was younger. In Texas, we don't have strong sex ed, if at all, right? Abstinence only, God will take care of the rest. And on top of that, there was no discussions in any educational setting around gender, sexuality, your expression, your identities. And so a lot of that happened in person for me in my early 20s and figuring out who I was and
Yeah.
what I wanted in a partner and what it meant to me to be queer.
Right. I feel like one two thoughts on that. One, community is so important for that reason. I mean, we have to have these spaces still. It's so sad that a lot of bars are, going under still in this, day and age. We just have to have community spaces because like you said, you're not going to get that education from school. And yeah, there's the internet and things like that, which have done a lot of wonders, but it's like, it's so sad. And then I have often thought about this statistic that I cannot remember literally like any numbers of it or anything about, factual about it, but it was the concept was that there's actually a large portion of gay parents in a southern state, one of the southern states, because they don't encourage that exploration. They don't encourage like finding out who you are and being out as much. And so you get married with a opposite gendered person and then you have a baby and then you divorce when you come out. And so like the fact that there's like the largest amount of gay parents in this area is not because it's like this woke mecca. It's more of like the opposite. Like it took these people so long to understand themselves, and it's not, it's like kids are wonderful, but it's just like it's just interesting. So it's like, yeah, if we fucking talked about it.
You bring up an awesome point around the community and the reporting. I
Yeah.
think there's this idea there are no queer people in the South. There
Yeah.
are no queer people in Texas. No, we're here. It's just either very hard for us to find community or it is dangerous for us because we live with individuals who either are very narrow-minded, have political power that they want to use to oppress queer people. Trans bans are on the rise, and a lot of that misinformation and hate does get spread, and it's really hard to combat that with kindness when someone is devoted to having that narrow-mindedness and that hate in their hearts and have that dictate their actions and behaviors.
Mm. So true. Fuck. I was like, it's so funny because like just 5 minutes ago I was about to cry hearing about you finding your gay self, and now I'm like, I want to smash my laptop because it just is so sad. Because we could all just be happy. There
Yeah,
doesn't have to be that way. We could just be like living through Sophia's little fun story and not thinking about all the like negative ramifications of it. But nevertheless, she persisted in Texas. So yeah, you started coming out and realizing and finding more about yourself. And yeah, so and you also picked up when you said the beginnings of coming out with certain people. That's a long process for some folks.
absolutely.
So I imagine you kind of had to do that over the years before you like came out to your parents.
Yes, yes. I feel like it was a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but like Sophia's hierarchy of queerness of like coming out and levels of
Yeah.
people who I was coming out to. So I came out to my brother first,
Mm.
and I love him. He's my best friend. I was so worried he was going to take this poorly, and I'm never going to forget this. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's fine. Give me 1 second." He starts going on his phone and he's saving or organizing something, and I was like, "Oh, well, okay, maybe that wasn't a surprise. He's not thrilled." He turns his phone around and it is girls who he has found attractive or had crushes on when he was younger. And he's like, "Do you like her? Do you think she's beautiful?" And I was like, "What is this?" And he goes, "Well, we have the same DNA and we both like girls. So I was wondering, do we have the same type?"
That is so funny.
I was like, I didn't know how coming out to him would come, but I did not know he would have a PowerPoint presentation of like, I would just like to collect data points on who you are interested in and if it is a genetic connection with us. And I was like, no, I love you so much. I am so glad, but no, you and I are not going to be fighting over women anytime soon or ever, but I appreciate your trying to connect with me in that moment. So
Oh, this feels kind of magical because I was just at therapy earlier today, and my therapist asked. We were talking about lots of different things, and my father, as most listeners know, is dead, and but my therapist was like, "What do you think he?" So we were like, "Oh, so you never came out to him?" And I was like, "No, I didn't actually." And they're like, "What do you feel about that?" I was like, "I've actually never thought about it, so thank you for making me spiral now." No, but but because I guess why I never thought about it is I know 100% that he would have been supportive. I know that. And he's a flawed man in many ways, but like he would have never that was never been a problem. And in my head I thought to myself, I'm like, fuck, if he was still alive, we would probably be talking about women. Like we would be like, that lady's hot. Oh my god, did you see this movie? Did you see her rack? Like I feel like I would be having those conversations with my dad if he were still here. And so that makes me that's pretty fun. That's good. That's a supportive brother.
He was great. And like you had mentioned, I felt like it was a process of me coming out to my brothers, my friends, the people who I dated knew I was queer because they were all queer relationships at this point. Co-workers. I was taking on academic programs and leadership roles in my company where I was talking about my queer identity. I was advocating for more resources for queer communities and employee resource groups and talking with candidates who were gay across the nation who were trying to find that community. And that was so powerful and really awesome for me. But I always felt really scared about telling my parents. And there were a lot of things that go into that, right? My parents had met my partners when I was in straight relationships. My parents had worried about me getting married. My parents were always trying to figure out how to best support Sophia. And a lot of that didn't include the emotional discovery part. They are wonderful people. There's just things that we are able to do and other things that we overlook or that because we weren't taught that, we don't know to do that with the next generation, right? Which
Yeah.
again is why representation is so important. And
Right.
I had no idea how they would take it. And I
Mhm.
was worried because of past experiences that it would be absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
I was so scared. I had seen so many close friends lose their families over coming out or being forced to come out.
Mhm.
And I felt that I wasn't ready to have this discussion yet where I could lose my family. And I
Yeah.
said, I need time to make sure I have my things in order. I'm going to therapy. I have the support systems in place for me to be able to, if the worst comes to worst, I have already talked about it with my brothers. I know who my chosen family is here in Dallas. Whatever happens, I am in a place where I can take care of myself and try to make my peace with what might be the worst scenario, because I had
Yeah.
seen that, and it's heartbreaking that we have youth and queer adults who have to suffer through that still.
Yeah. And take away your joy, because that's kind of what I mean, I don't know if that's a thought in your head too. I was like, oh, you're enjoying all these parts of your life, and now you're about to enter it. You could be welcoming in a bunch of sadness, and strife. And even if it kind of goes kind of okay, it's like, ugh, now you're going to know so much more about your relationship with your parents that in general, most people's relationships with parents are already like a little weird, as we get older. So, like, even under the best case scenario, it's like there's still just a lot to that. So, I mean, I'm glad that you prepped yourself and went into it prepared for a lot of different scenarios. Did it go ultimately well?
I'm happy to share. It did go well. What I ended up doing was, and it's so funny, a lot of people who are in pageants who are gay, they're either very quiet about it or they don't come out until after they compete. I made the decision early on I wanted to compete out. And last year, my parents came to the Miss Texas they were saying, we're going to come to the Miss Texas competition. We want to support you. And there is a portion of the competition that is an on-stage question. And it is often something about a service initiative that you've done or a part of your identity. And I really sat and I thought about it. And there were two main reasons why I wanted to come out. One, at the time, I was in a queer relationship with someone who I wanted my parents to meet. They were going to be supporting me at Miss Texas. My parents were going to be supporting me at Miss Texas. I said, all right, let's combine forces or try or die trying. And because of that onstage question, I was already out to my pageant directors. The executive director of Miss Texas knew I was that gay girl among some other queer girls. And I said, I want this to be something my parents hear from me. I don't want them to be in the audience. And this is how they find out from me that I am gay, is that as a gay contestant. And they're like, her, our daughter, she's talking in the first person. She's not reading a statement for another candidate. She's talking herself. I didn't want to put my parents through that. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I want it to be truthful, vulnerable, and maybe a little scary for me, but honest to my journey. So I talked to my mom every day, and I had kind of been floating to her for a couple of months that I was queer. And so when I decided I wanted to tell my parents, as a consultant and as someone who likes to feel sort of in control in a couple situations, I said, I'm going to draft an email. I'm too scared to hit send on this email. So Jenna, what I did was I said, I'm scheduled sending this for tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. I'm not going to be awake at that time. So I can't wake up and say, oh, I'm going to cancel it. I said, no, I'm going to do that. So I wrote out, hey guys, I love you. Something I want you to know about me is I'm gay. I'm currently in this relationship. I'm very happy. This is what it means to me. Here are some NPR links on queer identities, what pronouns are. I mean, we were an NPR family growing up. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try to meet them where they're at. And if it's confusing from me, maybe from one of these NPR reporters or podcasters that they've heard for years, maybe that feels a little more digestible or holistic, whatever. And
Oh.
I sent that email out and I just sat and I was like, well, I'm either going to have people supporting me at Miss Texas or I lost my parents. Stay tuned. And we ended up having a couple phone calls. My father, who is also very analytical, emailed me back and was very supportive. I'm very grateful for that. Um, Pageant weeks can be very stressful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we cry over many things, but the only time I cried during Miss Texas was when I saw the person who I was dating right next to my mom and dad. And I thought about how I had no idea that I would be so lucky that that would be my experience.
I hate this. It's so
Right, I'm
beautiful.
sorry. I'm sorry.
It makes me so happy. Oh, that's so beautiful. Cause
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, it's like you took so many risks in that. And like I was thinking in my head, I was like, God, what a psychopath to risk your like big week too. I was just like,
Yeah, it could have been really bad. It could have been really bad, but Again, I felt like at that point I said there is no other way for me to do this than by
Yeah,
being truthful to myself and being truthful to my parents.
yeah,
And I said I'd rather be who I am, and if they don't like it, at least I know I was honest to myself, than feel like I am living a lie to them, or not even a lie to them, but that I am not showing everything that I feel comfortable showing, you know?
exactly.
That's really
Yeah,
what it was. It felt like more of a
yeah.
burden, and I was
Mhm.
like, "You know what? They can handle the weight however they want, but I know that this burden isn't mine to carry anymore, and however anyone in their lives need to process it, that's on them, that's not a reflection of me," and that is, like we said, an ongoing iterative process, and
Mhm.
it is a continual process for some folks, so
Yeah. No,
we
I think
persist.
yeah, we persist. Yeah, I think that's yeah, it's a really good way to look at it. And you yeah, I was thinking that. It's like you're just not being your full authentic self. And it's not fair to you and it's not fair to the people you love and say that they love you. Yeah, sure. Like it that the reality is that some people will then abuse you for it and not love you back. And that is horrible. But like in the best case scenario, it's good that you do it because if you're holding that part back from them and they love you, then they need to know that. They need to be able to love you to the fullest that they can. And I think that's beautiful when that works out. So yeah, to be able to have your partner there and see that together, I see that's a very powerful moment. And I see that's why you also ultimately won the role that you did. In my opinion, I'm like, wow, Sophia's like so authentic. Like if I was sitting in that audience or if I was a judge, I just love that you like that's really like it's so true to you. Like a bachelor world is so fake sometimes, but you're like sometimes you're like, oh, this is a true moment of something, and I think I have been guilty of being like pageantry. It's all
So I
pageantry, right? But like I know that it's real for people. I know that people are taking it so fucking serious, and then you're going on stage and you're genuinely being like, no, this is what I believe in. These are who I am. This is how I want to better my community, like of my city and my state. This is how I want to like actually give back to people and do philanthropy and all of that. And so like to hear this story, I'm just like, wow, I'm a believer now.
Don't get me wrong. I think there's a parallel between Bachelor Nation and pageantry, right? Like, who's here for the right reasons and who's here for the wrong reasons, and who's here just like, this is an opportunity. I
I'm
don't want to try and
saying.
figure it out. So, there are definitely people who span the spectrum on all of that, and it makes for a really unique experience, very much like some of these bachelor seasons that we've seen in the past handful of years where
Yeah.
we have seen such a strong pageant presence or pageant rivalry or pageant enemies or pageant besties turned whatever.
I went to Reddit to like remind myself of all of the pageant ladies we've had in a minute. This was made 4 years ago, so it's not even probably including the ones of the last couple of years. I just could not be bothered to remember. But I was like shocked. So yeah, Kaylin, we remember Alaya Benavides. She was on Peter's season, I believe. Victoria Paul as well. Sydney Hightower, Kelsey Weir, Hannah Ann. Oh God, of course, Hannah
Oh, whoa,
Brown.
yeah.
But I'd forgotten about Hannah Ann, and then this is the one I forgot about. Maddie Pruitt, Grant Trout, Trizzy, Jesus.
Not
And
Trizzy Trout. Not Trizzy Trout. Not gang Trizzy Trout.
she was Miss Auburn 2014, and I was like, oh, triggered.
Wow. Wow. That well runs deep. I didn't even realize all of those folks were on the list.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I'm,
It
like I said, I'm sure there's even more, but just,
I bet. And knowing that that was just a handful of years ago, those numbers are multiplying. And I almost feel like not like it's an MLM where if you recommend someone, you get a benefit, but
it is, it is.
I'm like, there's some pipeline, there's some group chat where all of these girls are being able to do that. And I mean, if for some people, yes, incredible sisterhood. If you want to do this, we got a girl who's done it. You've got a state title holder or someone who was from your class, whatever, who can maybe recommend you for that. So it's really impressive to see that connection and that pipeline
And it
almost.
makes sense. Like people have talked about it at nauseum on many of Bachelor podcasts, but like the show is a game in a lot of ways, and competition. I mean, that part's not even hidden. It is a competition. And yeah, a lot of it's on poise and how you can engage with not only, I guess, the judges, which I would maybe say is the lead slash the audience, and
Mm-hmm.
then of course your how you interact with the other women in the house. Yeah, how much you can just like shine and come off as a good person. Um, in like a quick manner too, like the quickness of it. Like I imagine it's such a you only have a certain amount of time to be on stage to like make sure you leave a lasting mark, and that's the same with The Bachelor. Like it all makes sense to me how there, and I'm surprised not every single woman is.
And something you had mentioned earlier is that the way in the Bachelor mansion and when they're traveling, you spend 90% of your time with the other girls. And with the lead, if you're lucky, if you go all the way to the end at max 2 days worth of time, but who are you spending all the time in between in those weeks with? It's the girls. And that's much like Miss Texas. So for us, we have an entire week. So at my big age, I take a week of PTO to go do this. And it feels like big girl summer camp because we are sequestered on a floor of a hotel room. We have a curfew. We have a time we need to wake up. The doors might be taped. And you are in front of the judges at most that entire week, 20-25 minutes across the opening choreography, introductions, private interview, and those onstage pieces. But at the end of the day, what can make or break that experience for you is that connection with the other contestants. Do you get along with your roommate, or is it going to be like a Kaylin Miller Keys and Hannah Brown, where a handful of years from now, I'll say, you at Miss USA made me feel unsafe, and I hate that you're here, and I want you to go home, and you're here for the wrong reason. So there is a lot of similarity there.
Yeah, absolutely. And also sexy. No. I'm kidding, but it's like what we talked about in the episode with Here for the Wrong Reasons. It's like when I think it was maybe it was Lydia or Annabelle, was like jokingly saying like when the women come off the show and they're like the best part of the show was all the women and me hanging out with them. It's like, have you realized you're gay? Like I believe it. I believe the best time you ever had was all these women and not the man. But
And
anyway.
it's so funny you mentioned that. Um, there have been people who are not comfortable showing in pageantry that they are gay, but have reached out to me and have said, I am queer too. And
Love
it
that.
feels, I mean, not to be corny, but the sisterhood really does run deep in that way. And there are other queer title holders, queer former title holders, and title holders who are figuring out their own journey right now that I have been able to talk to. And because I'm one of the old, so pageants used to be like child bride ages. So I kind of fall on the, because my prefrontal cortex have developed, I'm kind of a little out of that threshold now. I feel protective of these girls and I have so much respect because I didn't start doing this until my mid 20s. There are girls who, I mean, toddlers and tiaras is real for some of these people. You have pictures of them when they were babies and they were taught they need to compete this way. They need to do this. This is what you were put on earth to do. And I'm like, that's a lot of pressure for the 6-year-old, but okay, Sally. And when you are taught you have to prioritize that crown and that title more than your own self-discovery, you have these girls who later on they say, oh, I never even thought that maybe this isn't what I want for myself, or this isn't entirely representative of who I am. And I'm so grateful that there have been contestants who have felt comfortable talking to me about that because, like we said, it can be lonely. Community is important. And as you can imagine, there are some environments or some customs from old pageantry that is quite homophobic,
Mhm.
which is so crazy to me because I'm going to tell you, every girl who is good at pageants is good because there was 1 to 6 gay men who mentored the hell out of her, who mentored the living daylights outside of her, who told her how to get that spray tan right, who told her how to shake a hand, who told her how to walk in heels, who told her that color looks busted on you. We're getting a new gown. So it's so interesting
Yeah.
that the queer environment and queer culture is such a foundation for pageantry, for drag, but some of those environments like to turn away from their queer roots or the queer founders. But what do I know? I'm just one gay lady talking during Pride Month.
Yeah, now you just added another checkpoint to another reason why The Bachelor is gay, because Bachelor equals pageantry, pageantry equals drag, and I'm saying, when I tell people, I'm like, Bachelor is actually really camp, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you're insane. I was like, it is, it's performing heterosexual, like, culture for the
Yeah.
masses, and it's like, pageantry is the same to me. It's like, we're performing this, like, heterosexuality. I'm performing. I am a straight woman to be desired by the masses, and I'm like, yeah, you are desired by the masses, by the women and the men and everyone in between.
Masses includes
Yeah,
everybody.
like what are you talking about? It's not a problem. But
Exactly.
I do. So yeah, I kind of we're not wrapping up quite yet, but I before we get into like some more jokes or whatever, maybe some hopes and dreams and things. I want to talk about yeah, kind of the homophobia parts of it and like what are your opinions on, have there been uh yeah, times where you have felt like unsafe or unwanted or have seen that happen? Is there like yeah, let's talk about.
Absolutely, there have been moments, unfortunately, where I have felt othered or misunderstood or misrepresented. I think about my first year of competing, and on all of my paperwork that we submit, it is very clear I am a lesbian. I talk about the fact that I am a lesbian. I talk about RuPaul's Drag Race. I talk about how the work that I do with queer youth and the program that I do in foster care systems and services, which is my full time job, that's really important to me. And I remember we were all in our dressing room and there was a girl who had competed last year and she pulled me aside and she said, I think you're going to do great, but you need to know with these directors, they don't like gay people. So if today is bad for you, that is not your fault. And hearing that from a place of
Yeah,
concern and
exactly. Like she was like concerned and trying to help you.
warning me
Yeah.
was it's so hard because I say thank you for letting me know. I can't really dial my gay down. I mean I'm gonna keep doing that, but I was appreciative that she said that. And there are folks either who in person or through online forums, because they love an online forum in pageantry, have questioned parts of me or who I am or why I'm doing this. I've received really threatening messages, and it's so disheartening because I'm just a gay girl who wants to look nice from now and again. Like, I just want to do the same thing straight people want to do sometimes. Again, like my identity doesn't dictate my interests, but people can try to weaponize that really quickly and really misunderstand that. So that's from like a contestant and people online perspective. A
Right.
part of the competition is private interview, and they can ask you anything on your paperwork or they can ask you whatever they want.
Yeah.
And often, because I am either the only or one of the only lesbians or queer contestants, I become a litmus test for a lot of queer topics. I have been asked about trans bans. I have been asked about trans athletes. I have been asked about whether trans contestants should be allowed. People have used language told me misinformation about the queer community, and then they go, so what do you have to say about that? And it's towing this line of you are wrong and I think that question is disrespectful. I also am not a trans person. I do not speak for the trans community. We have
Yeah.
incredible trans contestants and trans people who are in pageants who I support and advocate and want to continue being a sister towards. But I am not the spokesperson for all things trans or all things gay, even. So giving them an answer that is true to who I am, that corrects them and says, no, I don't think that this community is hijacking pride. I don't believe or agree with the misinformation you're sharing. And this is why community, solidarity, education, and empathy are so important. Because if we had all had that, you wouldn't be asking me these questions
Yeah.
where then I have to take valuable time from telling you who I am to educating you on something that should be a standard of respect for everyone, regardless of their gender or sexuality.
Absolutely. It's like it is. It's wasting your time. It's wasting everyone's time. It's inappropriate. I am glad, yeah, that you said like we need to be in community with
Mhm.
our community. So it's like, you do that when you can. But yeah, like what an uncomfortable position to to have been put into. That is not, that's unfortunate. Unfortunate. And then you said something about being weaponized and misunderstood, and I agree with that too. I feel like on like the misunderstanding part, it's kind of like I think there's still so like in these spaces so much like stereotyping of like, well, if you're doing all this pageantry, for lack of a better word, and you're not doing it for a man, then why are you bothering? Or like, isn't that's the only reason we do any of this stuff? And it's like, no, there's femme lesbians and femme queer people out there who do it for the gaze of women or for themselves rather, like period, first of all. But it doesn't have to be for the gaze of the man, and it confuses people so much because that's all they've ever been taught. And even if they're not coming from a place of hatred, it's like they're just confused by it. Like, I've been told to do XYZ. I talk about this a lot with the fat liberation.
Mm.
Sometimes people are so mad at fat people experiencing joy because they're like, I've been told to hate my body my whole life. Why are you not hating yourself right now? And not even because I hate you, but because now I'm upset because I've wasted my entire life hating my own body, and I've wasted my entire life shaving my legs. I've wasted all my life doing all whatever XYZ for the male gaze, and you're telling me I didn't have to? Good luck, babe. Let's
Yeah.
play. um, but
That's the
yeah,
point of it all, the decentering men of it all.
yeah, it's like
And
crazy.
Mhm.
So there's that, but then I imagine there's the weaponization of the predatory, being called a predatory lesbian, and it happens obviously in gay male culture too, and trans culture, or like within these communities where people are like, you're trying to infiltrate these like places to like hit on me and to like be with me, and I can imagine like the predator lesbian stereotype would be weaponized as well in spaces like this. That you're just there because like you want to hit on these other women and they're uncomfortable by that.
And it's so frustrating. And thankfully, anyone who says that has only said that on an online forum. And I know they only say it there because that's where they feel safe to do it. And truly, I am deeply protective of this sisterhood. These women have taught me so much about myself, about a work ethic. These are women who are going to be doctors, lawyers. These are women who have survived cardiac events. These are women who have helped me do my taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I it frustrates me because it's like, if you care about where you're at, you're not going to harm the people that are there. And it gets so upsetting and it feels so ugly when people make these assumptions about you without knowing your purpose or who you are. And some of these girls I take a bullet for. Like, when they say sisterhood, it for me with some of these women, it really is a
Mm-hmm.
sisterhood. And I am so proud to call these women my sisters, my mentors, role models, girls who I can call at 2 a.m. and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to pack for this thing tomorrow? And what are we doing? And people who I can hang out with outside of a pageant environment. Like, these are real friends and these are people who I really care about. And again, it goes back to taking away a male focus where I am a person who is interested in women, but every woman who I am friends with or get along with, I am not secretly in love with her. I am not secretly trying to get into her good graces so that she can be gay.
Yeah.
The gay agenda for Sofia is for Sofia to be gay. I have no intention of flipping anyone. That is not what I. There are only so many hours in a day, and that is not at the top of my list. It is not anything I am concerned about. My whole thing is I want people to feel safe being who they are. And if you're straight,
I'm sorry.
I'm like, I'll help you through it. Least I can do is pray for you, is the whole thing. So it is frustrating, right? Because people can't understand, oh, but if you're interested in girls and guys are interested in girls, what are you and I'm like,
It's
okay, so you don't believe in platonic friendships. You don't know how to respect people of the sex you're attracted to, is what I'm hearing. So if anyone needs to, take a lap, perhaps it is you, my friend.
I know that's I was like, oh, it's like tell me you just like understood patriarchy and toxic masculinity without telling me you understood it. Like it's so obviously not hashtag not all men, but it's like it's just like funny. They're like, oh my god, well if you like men like women and men are predators, then that means you're. I'm like, what? Just because you hang around men who are gonna be shitty doesn't mean I have to be.
Okay, I am not the one. And I think it's so funny because it is Pride Month and also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm like, what have I? Is this not perfect fodder? Is this not perfect grounds for a collaborative experience for us to
Yeah.
have to join forces and maybe talk about the patriarchy, heteronormativity of it all, and how everyone should be able to express themselves emotionally and not be threatened by expression in general? Maybe a thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get there as a society one day, but
Yeah, or maybe Nick Viall will still be worried that he's gonna lose his wife because he fell into the pool and he swam weird. Like, toxic masculinity hurts us all.
fellas, is it gay to make mistakes? Fellas, is it gay to exist? Fellas, is it gay to be around a woman you like? Fellas, is it gay to express emotions? Fella, is it gay?
Is it
Period?
gay? Yeah,
Is it gay?
like,
Question
I'm
mark?
like, you have a podcast, that's gay. Like, that means you like to yap. Sorry,
Yes.
yapper
You do,
yapperson.
you do sponsorships. Gay. You post photos that are edited. Gay. Like the anything that he does, we could all make an argument that it's quote gay. So I'm just like, Nicholas, at your big age, let's maybe stop weaponizing things that just make us feel insecure. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my goodness.
real
Well,
down.
that's real. That's not gonna happen. So we better move on to fixing it where we can in other places.
Precisely.
I guess I want to hear your thoughts on a us ever having a gay bachelor season, and then we'll wrap up with your hopes and dreams
Ooh,
with
okay.
gay pageantry. And yeah, so do you think we should?
Okay. Okay. I think with queer dating shows where we've seen a lot of success, I'm thinking the Are You the One queer season that came out a handful of years ago. I'm thinking about Queer Ultimatum that came out last year, and the second season is coming, I believe, in August or September of this year. Also, Love Island has always had sort of a bisexual, I mean, it's a bisexual show, but we have had bisexual, I believe, just female contestants. And so I think hopefully whoever makes these decisions, these producers, they need to be acknowledging that there is a market for not only queer viewers, but queer and straight viewers who want to see this queer content. Some of the people who were most excited about the Queer Ultimatum were my straight friends, and they were like, oh, see, I'm like, welcome to our everyday lives. I was like, welcome to every queer person's existence. I would love to see a queer bachelor slash bachelorette season where they are queer from the jump and they are with other queer contestants, because we have seen the Colton of it all. And then we also saw with the incredible news, Gabby Windy and now her partner, Robbie. And that has been such a blessing and such a joy to see. And she was one of my favorites. And so when she came out, I was like, another one, thank you.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think there is a way to do it.
Mhm.
I don't know if the way we currently have the show set up, I mean, you know how us lesbians are. Some of us fall in love in 5 days, and that can be at the far end of the spectrum. So I think it would maybe have to be, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it too.
But see,
Like,
that's perfect. That would make the most successful season ever.
like
Like, are you
a
kidding me?
big
We might,
brother.
yeah,
Yes.
we might actually have a real love connection. If you put some
Mhm.
fucking dykes on this shit, like they're gonna fall in love quicker than the normal season. You know, like, come
Absolutely.
on.
We will make
Uh,
Claire Crawley seem like it took her ages to tell Dell that she was in love with.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Actually, our lesbian icon, Claire Crowley.
Yes.
Um, and so yeah, like I don't see the problem. I only see bonuses. My problems that
I'm
I
like,
see are the fandom,
mhm.
that's where I actually don't see much problem with the inherent structure of the show. And I've said that before. Sure, people will fall in love with each other as well, like besides the lead, but there will always be at least five people who are like are golden retrieving their asses to the top because they're in love with the lead. And like, if anything, it'll make it more dynamic. And you only need fucking two to get there anyway to make it a dynamic season. And it would be dramatic if, you know, Jessica fell in love with Hannah and all this shit. Like, I don't give a shit, right? So I don't see any problems with the actual mechanics. The problems are the fan base and, you know, whatever. But I mean, at this point, there's no reason not to do it. Ultimatum has done it. Other people have done it. And not to say that those people have not received, obviously, a litany of death threats and everything and beyond. But I don't know. Like I also said before with the fat stuff, like, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm sorry. That's a cop out at this point. It's
It-
2024.
Yes. Fat people exist and they want to find love and they are great television the same way queer people are a
Yeah.
concept. Producers, get it through your minds
Yeah.
that we love to see ourselves represented because we have those journeys in our personal lives as well.
Yeah. So I think we should, and I do think it is happening. It'll probably happen in the next year or so. And it'll be insane, but it'll be what we've all been working together for as this community for years and years. Oh, good times. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, what are your hopes and dreams for being queer in the pageant world and getting other people out there? Is there anything you want the listeners to know, ways they can support this or do their own little, like, you know, journey in it?
So, my purpose as I continue through pageantry is continuing to be my authentic self, show that I am gay, people who are gay, however you identify, this is something that you can do, you can succeed at, and you can find community in. So, one of my biggest aims is to continue empowering people to show up in pageantry, which sometimes people feel pressured not to be their authentic selves. I want you to come here and find that this is a place for you to shine. So continuing to mentor queer youth and show up for other people who feel as though they haven't had that chosen family, that means everything to me. And for me, that would be what being a successful pageant queen looks like.
I love that.
I would encourage people to go out, and the way you have been able to find incredible trailblazing queer women in pageant spaces, I would encourage I can list people like Monroe Lace, who was a former Miss San Francisco. We have Bree Wynn, who was in New Hampshire, our first openly trans contestant through the Miss America opportunity. I think of Shavannah Clark, who she is the first queer, openly lesbian, and she's also a Black woman who is Miss Connecticut USA. And then we had mentioned Bailey Ann earlier. There are so many amazing women and people in pageantry right now who are taking these bold steps. So I would encourage you, go out, follow them, support them, and also in general, be nice to gay people. This isn't to you. This is for anyone who's listening who wasn't nice to gay people at the beginning. If you're listening, you should be nice to gay people because you've been listening to two of us for the last hour. But really take that time into consideration because, like you said, supporting each other takes nothing.
Yeah.
Creating that community means everything.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you spend your precious time and energy hating when you can just let others live their authentic selves?
Yeah, so true. And they will help you look gorgeous, like you said. They will help you dress better and they'll help you look better. So
Exactly. Yes.
if you want to look good, whatever her fucking name is, Matt James's mom, Patty.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, I see her face. I see her hair.
Yeah, she needs a gay man stat. I don't know. Like, can we?
She lovely human. We can revamp the wardrobe, perhaps, or the style. All of us can use a style level up, I think, from a gay person.
Exactly. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, thank you so much, Sophia. This has been better than I was even. I feel like we did something.
This has really been for us years in the making. I looked because you had asked the question, oh, when did you start listening? And I knew I had first heard you on Chatty Broads in 2020. So I was a big fan of Chatty Broads. I listen to your mom and dad now. I've been listening to y'all and you since 2020, Game of Roses, as well as two Black Girls, One Rose. That has been like the foundational podcast. I mean, of course, with like my boring news, but like the news I love to hear comes from all of y'all about Bachelor Nation. So the fact that we have been able to message and spread conspiracy theories about Bachelor Nation and just go back and forth yapping about this hellish and hectic and fun and crazy fandom that we both find ourselves in for years is super special. So
It
very
is.
appreciative. And I'm so happy that this worked out for us.
I know, me too. All of those people you mentioned are amazing too. Like the Bachelor like commentary space is rich and diverse and really beautiful. And I always hate when people condense it down to just like, oh, there's just like what? There's probably like one podcast that talks about it and it's just like two straight ladies. I was like, you couldn't be further from the fucking truth, dude. It's like it's insane and deep and diverse and unhinged like me. I'm the little fucking scrappy dog that no one wants to talk to anymore, but I am still here. But what is so important to me is the connections I make and the friendships I mean, like genuinely, like I've made like lifelong friends through this shitty shit, and so it keeps me going. I mean, it also keeps me going, and knowing that it like kind of makes a difference sometimes. Like I do get DMs from people that are like really appreciate the way you talked about, XYZ. So
That's why I'm here, because hearing you on the podcast, and it was the first time I had heard someone in Bachelor Nation say, I enjoy consuming this, but I have some reluctance given the fat phobia, transphobia,
racism,
racism,
everything.
yeah, the ableism. There's a lot of things within Bachelor Nation that thankfully have been improving, but they have not been improving fast enough to reflect what society looks like. So finding other people who love watching this but are very aware and can lovingly say, we need to work on this. You say that not from a place of hate, but you say that because we have created community here. It's
Yeah.
not
I want to enjoy myself. I want to have a good time.
yes,
It's not just
exactly.
for you, fucking Janice. It's not for just you anymore. And in fact, it's not for you anymore because Chris Harrison's gone and you said he was your king. So please leave and let us do what we have to do.
Exactly, exactly, yes,
Let me fucking live.
yes, yes.
Okay, anyway, fuck everybody. Okay, it's been wonderful. Okay, where can people find you, Sophia, and follow you and fall in love with you?
Oh, thank you. So my Instagram and my TikTok are the same username. They are the Texas grandmother. Just because I live here in Texas, I'm a proud Dallas resident. And then for more things regarding my pageant page and my pageant career, that would be on my current pageant Instagram handle, which is Miss MISS Carrollton CARROLLTON.
I'll have all of that linked in the notes, of course. And yeah, thank you again so much, truly. Please come back and recap an episode, maybe Jen's season, or definitely when we have gay season.
I would whatever you need me to yap about around Bachelor, I am here to protect and serve, okay? This is my gay duty, truly.
I would be so honored. Uh, and thank y'all so much for listening again. If you haven't followed us over at Date Card Pod, please do. We have a couple other fun gay episodes coming out this month. And then, as I mentioned before, Jen's season is coming up on July 8th. Very excited about it. Like, super fucking excited about it. I've been getting some really good interviews locked and loaded for that. And the promos have been coming out and they look so good. And I'm just so excited. Let's do it with the Genergy. Okay, everybody stay gay. Bye. I don't know how to sign off on the video
I
anymore.
know, I love it.
Like,
Stay gay.